Alright, so what we're going to do in this lesson is we are going to talk about how to solve expressions that involve fractions. So one of the things that you have to remember is that the order of operations is still in play and your rules with fractions are still in play. So here's our expression. We have 2 times the quantity, sorry about that, that's a much larger pen than I wanted. We have 2 times the quantity y plus 7 minus 8 times y. And here we have that we want y being equal to 1/2. So of course we have to substitute. So anywhere that we see a y, so we see a y here and a y here, we have to substitute in 1/2. So our expression becomes 2 times the quantity 1/2 plus 7 minus 8. Now remember, when you see a coefficient and a variable like this, it means that you're multiplying. So this would be 8 times 1/2. Alright, so now the first thing we need to do, again, you have to remember the order of operations. And we do have parentheses. And so we have to add 7 plus 1/2 first. The nice thing here is that since we don't have a fraction connected to the 7, it's only a whole number, not a mixed number, is that we can just look at it as saying I have 7 pizzas plus 1/2 of a pizza. So this means I just have 7.5 pizzas. Bring down everything else that I haven't used, I haven't multiplied, and I haven't multiplied. There are no more parentheses, so I'm good there. I don't have any exponents. Now I need to multiply or divide, and I need to work my way from right to left. So here I need to multiply first. I have 2 times 7 and 1/2. If I'm not sure about with my skills with multiplication, what I need to remember is that 7 and 1/2 has to be turned into a mixed number first. So 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15, so this is 15 over 2. So then I just do 2 over 1, because that's what we do with the whole number, times 15 over 2. Alright, and I get 30 over 2, which when I simplify that becomes 15. Another way I can look at this is I have 2 groups of 7.5. 7.5 and 7.5 gives me 15, so I know my answer is correct. Now here, because it's 2 sets of multiplication and they're 2 separate pieces, so here's multiplication and here's multiplication, I can do it together. Now here's what's different. In this case, I had 2 groups of 7.5. Here I have 8 groups of 1/2, which doesn't end up telling me that I'm going to have 16, because that would be 8 times 2. I'm taking half of 8 if I read it backwards, or just go back and use what you know about multiplying with fractions. Turn it into 8 over 1 times 1/2. 8 times 1 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. And when I simplify that, I get 4. So this becomes 4. Okay, I have no multiplication or division left, but I do have addition and subtraction. And when I subtract, I get 11. So my answer in this case would be 11. A big thing is, if you're not really sure about your skills with multiplying with fractions or dividing with fractions or adding with fractions, just do your work off to the side and practice it. Double check your work, all right? And the thing is, when you're working through different things, it's not always that you can convert to a decimal, because a lot of times we have to know, can you add and subtract or multiply and divide with fractions? So keep that in mind when you're working through your stuff. Alright, the next one's a little different. We have 1/4 x minus 15, and in this case x is equal to 100. So here I just have 1/4, and again when I see my coefficient and my variable, I know that's multiplication, and I have to subtract 15. Alright, again, if I'm not sure about my skills, I can go off to the side and do 1/4 times 100 over 1, and this becomes 100 over 4, and when I simplify that, I get 25. Another way to look at this is I'm taking 1/4 of 100, so if I have 100 and I break it into fourths, each fourth has to be worth 25 in order to get to 100. And I should have put that on top to make my picture make a little bit more sense. I'll put the 100 down here. So in this case, this would be 1/4, 2/4, which we know is 1/2, 3/4, and 4/4. So 1/4 would be equal to 25. And even though I said 25, I wrote 24 thinking of 1/4. See how easy it is to make mistakes? So then here I have 25 minus 15, and I get 10. All right. For the next one, we have a word phrase for our problem. So we're going to take this and we're going to first translate it to an expression. So I have the difference, which tells me I'm going to subtract, of 10 and a number. So in this case, I don't know what it is, so I'm going to use n, divided in half. Now, here's what's confusing. A lot of times students like to think that just because it says half, it means half. When you divide something in half, so take 4 for example. If I were to, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were to divide it in half, I'm putting it into two groups. If I take 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are very horrible drawings, I'm sorry. But you're dividing it by 2 when you split it in half. 1, 2, 1, 2. You're not dividing by half. Okay? Divided in half means that you're going to divide by 2. Dividing by half would mean that you would divide by 1/2. And we'll look at an example like that after this one. So in this case, the difference of 10 and a number, so that would be 10 minus a number divided in half. So divided by 2. So again, this doesn't mean half, this means 2 because of the word in. That's an important number. Now we want the difference, meaning I need to do the 10 minus n first. So we're going to solve this for n equals 4. So anywhere I see an n, I substitute 4, and I'm dividing it by 2. So in this case, I get 10 minus 4 is 6, and I divide by 2, which gives me 3. So when I divided in half, this turned, my answer became 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take all of this and we're going to move it over to the side. And then I'm going to take the word problem and I'm just going to change it ever so slightly. So I'm actually going to take this piece and move it down here. So now I have the difference of 10 and a number divided by half. All right, so again, that one little word makes such a huge difference because now I'm still taking the difference, so I'm still subtracting 10, and I'm still subtracting a number. I don't know what it is, so I'm going to call it n. Divided by half means I'm actually going to use half in this case. So again, I still have to do 10 minus n first, and now I'm actually going to divide by half. In tells me I divided by 2. By tells me I'm actually going to divide by that number. All right. So again, we're going to use n equals 4. So I have 10 minus 4, and I'm going to divide it by half. 10 minus 4 is still 6, divided by half. I have to remember that when I divide by a fraction, I keep, change, flip. So keep my dividend, change to multiplication, and flip my divisor. So I get 6, and I can make this 6 over 1, so 6 times 2 is 12, 1 times 1 is 1, and my answer in this case is 12. Makes a big difference if I say by or in, doesn't it? I get the difference of an answer of 3 or an answer of 12. So you have to make sure that you're reading carefully.